Hi there, and welcome to part 2 of getting started with data objects in Flowable. If you've watched part 1, and there's a link down below in the description, you'll know that we'll create a Flowable application that contains a data object, a service model as a data source, and a page with a data table to show our data that we've created. Now, today what we're going to do is we're going to add a CMMN case model into the mix just to spice up things. So let's go into the create. Let's say this is my patient case, and the idea is that for each patient in my system, I will have one CMMN case instance basically managing its life cycle. So here we go. And if I start this instance, what I want to do as first is I want to create my patient. Here we go, patient create. But of course, to do that, I need data. And if you've watched part 1, you'll know we already have a form for that, and I'm going to reuse that one. So I'm going to go into my start form now. And I'm going to link this one to my create form that I had before. Now, there's a little thing I don't like about it, so let's open it. What I don't like about it is that it has a last visit field. Now, this is not really interesting to fill in. I can just use the current timestamp of the system. So let's remove this. Here we go. And let's save all of this and go back. I've got now my patient create. As you can see here, the data object reference, the one that I'm linking to, still needs to be set. So let's go into it. Let's link it to my patient and configure the operation. And because I only have one create operation, it already pre-selected this one. And now I can map the data from my start form into my data object operation. And the variable assistant can help me here because it's going to suggest me the first name, the last name, the age. And here I am cheating a little bit. I already went into the Flowable documentation and looked up the expression I need to get the current time, which is in my copy paste, and there it is. Okay, so if this works, let's save this one, publish. If this works, when I start a new case instance, I will have a form that allows me to fill in data, and this should create a new patient. All right, let's see what it does in work. Here we go. Here's my form. Let's say this is Clark Kent, and he's 45 or something. Submit it. And you see it's already completed because, of course, there is nothing really going on except the create. But if I go into my page, if all things went well, there is indeed a Clark Kent here. And I didn't talk about it in the last movie, but you can do things like sorting automatically, right? Here, or last name, or it doesn't really matter. You can see that this changes, and I didn't have to write any SQL to do this. This is because we're introspecting the data object structure and generating the SQL behind the scenes automatically. All right, so this was interesting. We could create a new patient, but in reality, you're also going to want to edit and update this information. So there's various ways to do this, but let's just now say I'm going to have a user event listener, which is going to give a button in Flowable Work to do this. So let's say this is the edit button. And if I click the edit button, I want to have a process. I could also model this within my CMMN case model, but let's just say that I want to have a process here, patient, because maybe there is a review approval step, which I can explain better in BPMN. Let's say I want to create a new update patient process. Here we go. There it is. And the one thing I want to do is I want to map my patient that I have into the process. Now to do that, I need a variable. So here I can say under my data object configuration, I want to have an output variable, and I'm just going to call this one patient. Here we go. Again, at no point in time, there's going to be the full data objects is never going to be stored in the case or a process instance for that matter. There's going to be a reference. And whenever I need this, the data object engine behind the scenes will do the right operations and get the right data into your instance. So the variable only contains a reference, but not a copy of the data. Yeah, unless I, check this store copy thing here, that's a different story. Anyway, so I've got the patient variable now, and I can now go into the mapping, into the in mapping here, and basically say, I want to map the patient into just a patient. Quite easy, right? Here we go. Just save things to be sure. In this context, I've now got my patient. I can now do various things to kind of update this information. For example, I could create a user task with a form, bind it to the patient data. That would actually work. But I like things more explicit. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a first phase where I'm going to gather the data to update my patient. And then I'm going to update explicitly, update patients. There would be way more in reality, but this is a demo, so let's just quickly go through it. Here I need a form, obviously. So let's create a form. So gather form, let's say, here we go. So what I want to do here is I just want to say here I've got my original first name, for example, and I need to bind this, I need to bind this value then. Remember, I used patient, right? Patient.first name. And I can do the same thing for the last name, right? So original last name. And similarly, I'm going to bind this one to patient.last name. Here we go. And I am also going to disable this. Here we go. So I'm going to say enabled false because I don't want to update this. Now, this would actually work. If I do this, this would actually work. And I could automatically update it, but I don't like it. I like to see my original one and then my new one. So let's just say this is the new first name. Here we go. And then I'm going to add the new last name. Here we go. This should work. Let's save it. So now we've got the first name, last name, or the new ones, let's say. I now need to map this into my update. So again, the same thing as before, link it to my data object, and the update operation is already done. The thing I now need, of course, is I need to map it to the correct patient. And to do that, I need the patient, right? Patient.id. Here we go. Now, I can now use my information from my form and basically say the new first name here and, and the new last name here. And I'm just going to leave the age and last visit open because I don't want to update them. Here we go. Let's see if this works. All right. Here we go. Oh yeah, I also want to see, of course, my current patient. So let's just add a work form here. And this is the work, I'm just going to call work form. Naming is really hard. And what I'm going to do here is I'm basically going to do like the first name. Here we go. Bind this one to patient. And similarly to last name. And bind it also to the patient because that's a variable name that we're storing. And just to make things a bit safer, I'm also going to disable those. All right, that's a lot of things that we did. Let's see if this all works. Publish it to work. Let's say go create a new one. Patient case. Let's say Lois Lane. She's 41 or something. Here we go. You can see there's now a button for the user event listener. And basically, let's just see this correct. We created Lois Lane behind the scenes here, and it's in my table. So if I now edit Lois Lane, we're now starting this process, right? The first step being to gather data, Lois Lane being the original name, new name. Let's just make sure that, we see the difference. Update it. Here we go. Let's complete that. Here we go, goes back. The whole case is completed, obviously, because there's nothing else to do. But let's go and look in our table, and you can see that the data actually has been updated automatically in my database. Okay, cool. There's one more thing that I want to do. Let's go back to the case. Let's say I want to also now add in that I can delete my patients. So this is a new button. Delete. And I could do another process here with review, approve, and all the things. That's really up to you. Your imagination is a limitation. So I'm going to be a bit lazy here, and I'm just going to say I want to delete. Here we go. And I'm going to link those two together. Here we go. And make it a bit pretty. There we go. And this is then the patient delete. And we've now done it a couple of times, so it's going to be easy. I'm going to link it to my data object and configure the operation. Again, we only have one. And basically, I could select an input variable here, passing in my patient. I could also then say delete this variable if I want to, but I can also just do, this is the patient.id, right? This is exactly the same, would work equally. All right, let's see what this does. Publish it. And then go to work. There we go. Create another one. Let's say Peter Parker, 32. Got the edit, we got the delete. Let's say Peter Parker is actually being created behind the scenes. Here he is. And let's now delete him. And he's gone. I could do various steps here. Have a process, have a few forms to make sure. Just delete straight away, did it here. We can see it's gone from my lists in my database. All right, so we built, quite already, not I would call this advanced, but at least it's not trivial anymore. A CMMN case model, which we linked to our data object. in which we created, updated, and deleted, and of course viewed our data object data. In the next movie, we're going to add some relationships to other data objects and make things a bit more interesting. So stay tuned.